Hi everyone. It's 6:30, so I think we should get going. First of all, let me say welcome to What It Takes to Turn Virtual Networks into Opportunities. This is the third talk in this year's What It Takes Alumni Speaker Series for 2021-22. I'm Jim McClellan, so I'm the host for tonight. I'm a principal lecturer in journalism, so I work in the School of Media and Communication at the University of Westminster, and I teach on the BA Journalism course, which is the course that our guest tonight, Rituja, graduated from 3 years ago. I can't believe it's been 3 years, Rituja. So, but before I introduce Rituja, let me just go through some kind of housekeeping. So, the talk is being recorded. Now it's going to be edited and made available on YouTube when it's ready. So you will receive a link later on once the talk is ready. Your cameras and microphones are automatically turned off, right? But the live chat is on. Now, group chat is there for you to ask questions to our our speaker. We have a team who are going to collate all those questions throughout the talk, and then I will put the questions to Rituja once she's finished her talk. Alternatively, you can private message the moderators with your questions. So the moderators they're in a team that's David, Hayden, James, Nandini, and Tierney. So you can private message the moderators or just put the kind of questions in the general group chat, and David, Hayden, James, Nandini, and Tierney will be pulling them up into a kind of document for me to use. Even though, right, let me just reassure you, even though live chat is on, the live recording, which ends up on YouTube, won't pick up your usernames or the chat, right? So there is an anonymity there. One tip also, you can change your notification settings to stop sound and pop-up notifications. It can be a bit irritating in Collaborate. So go down the bottom, see the purple button, click on that, pull the bottom right out, go to settings, the little cog, and then you can turn off the notifications to stop loads of pop-up messages coming in. Good. That's the housekeeping. Are you ready, Rituja? I have to introduce you now. So I am really delighted to introduce our alumni speaker for today's talk, Rituja Rao, who's going to share her insights into what it takes to turn virtual networks into opportunities. So Rituja completed her BA journalism degree in 2018, and she is now an award-winning IT consultant and emerging thought leader in the UK tech industry. When she graduated, she made a career change, right? So breaking into tech, despite not having any formal education in technology. Rituja currently works as a management consultant at Capco, having previously delivered multi-million-pound digital transformation projects for banking clients. Rituja is going to talk about the importance of professional networking and how networking online can be vital to your success as a student or as a professional or as an entrepreneur. And she'll talk a little bit about what she's learned about this on her career journey. The talk is also going to provide some insight and advice on how you can identify your voice online. It's going to help you in terms of carving out that personal brand and how to use your platforms to effectively network and leverage your career. So the plan is Rituja is going to talk you through her presentation, and then I'll come back online and we'll have a Q&A session after that. So over to you, Rituja, and I'm going to turn my camera and my mic off.
Great. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. I hope everybody can hear me fine. I'm Rituja. It's lovely to be here. I've been a student at the University of Westminster and attended numerous What It Takes talks. So, it is really a bit of a personal milestone for me to be here again. First of all, I just wanted to say Happy Diwali to everybody who's celebrating. As you can see, I'm all dressed up. It is Diwali, and it's usually this time when we kind of celebrate a lot of the festivities. So as you can see, I'm all dressed up, and I thought there's no better platform to show who I really am. So yeah, just Happy Diwali for everybody. Coming back to my talk, I guess you might be thinking why I should be the person who talks to you about this. But really, I think for me, networking, and especially virtual networking, has been so useful for my career. Everything I've been able to do has been because of networking, as a thing, and kind of using my journalism skills to probably show me as a unique person that I am. To tell you a little bit about myself, I, like Jim said, graduated with a degree in journalism. And straight out of uni, I started working in technology. I had absolutely no formal education in technology, so no computer science, engineering, none of that. And I kind of got into project management, and actually very technical project management. And now I lead teams of engineers, and especially I kind of specialize with like banking clients and financial services. Outside of my day job as a IT consultant, I am a tech career speaker. So I do lots of talks around alternative ways to get into technology, a little bit about diversity and inclusion, and most importantly, social mobility. I talk about social mobility a lot. And one of the biggest things I do in that sort of topic is personal branding and how people can use networking and mentoring as a way to pivot their careers and try something they've never tried. I've previously worked with clients like Amazon, QA, multiple times with the University of Westminster and beyond. And I take a lot of pride in doing that. You could sort of see me as somebody who's very young, graduated. Really, I'm not very successful when it comes to job titles as yet, but I really think that it's important for me to use my voice and share my story as to how I've been able to do this for myself. So yeah, today this is going to be our agenda. I think I'm going to be focusing a lot on networking, but what that means before the pandemic and after the pandemic, what kind of effect has that had on us? And then kind of go into the entire concept of personal branding. And I'm hoping that through my session today, you're able to walk away with an understanding of your niche, and perhaps have a good understanding of which social platforms you'd want to start off with to kind of start promoting your personal brand. And then finally, I'll talk a little bit about what should be in your toolkit, so your branding toolkit. And then we're going to talk a little bit about networking, but at scale. So instead of networking one-to-one, we'll talk a little bit about how you can do it all the time. Great. So I think what I'll do is I'll just start off a little bit with the kind of introduction of, why me and what virtual networks have done for me. The best way to start off is that every time I want to do something new, or I want to try something new, or I want to find a new job, instead of jumping onto Glassdoor, LinkedIn, etc., to find a job or to like research and Google something, what I do is I seek out mentors and people in my network who can help me. What that does is that it allows me to speak to a real human who can give me their insight, but also a real human who I can impress, for the lack of a better word, who will give me that opportunity to allow me to have access to things I would not have had access to. Access is a very key word that I use here. We all come from different backgrounds, economic, academic, ethnic, and these things often translate to the kind of opportunities that are available to you, the choices that you have, but more importantly, the knowledge that you have about something. The best way to cut through these layers a lot of times is to connect with people, meet people, impress them, and get your way. So that's pretty much how my career started. When I was in journalism, I love journalism. It remains my number one passion. And I think that's what I'm going to do, ahead in the future when I'm really successful. But when I was doing journalism, I kind of was very lucky to have that access to mentors very early on in my career. Kind of decided that my heart probably lies in technology, so I can learn the craft and bring that back to journalism. So through having some mentors that were journalists and they did lots of different roles within media. I got the opportunity to move more towards sort of technology by working at tech startups as a media comms intern, etc. And it just gave me that feel for what technology is like. And then when I was finally ready to make that jump into technology, I just went to every conference there was, just printed myself some business cards, kind of talked about my journalism experience and how I had lots of transferable skills that would make me a fantastic technologist. And after going through 150 applications, lots of conferences, n number of interviews, I finally landed my job. And that happened because I was at a conference, got to speak to somebody, got to connect with them on LinkedIn, and then kept dropping them hints and messages about the things that I was doing. And it took me about 6 to 7 months of being connected to them for finally getting that phone call saying, you know what, we'll give you this first opportunity to get into technology. And that gave me the confidence to then think that if I had people who were looking out for me, who were kind of thinking of me, even when I was not in physical rooms with them, that's really the power of networking. It's not just who you know, but who knows you and who will speak about you and for you in places, where you're not immediately there. So that's kind of given my career a bit of a lift where I've had some fantastic mentors who are far ahead in their careers than me. Some mentors who are kind of very close to my career, but they're doing something different. So I get to have access to a horizontal move in my career, if that makes sense. And then finally, the role I'm at, I actually found this role because I was at a conference and I was doing a talk very much like this. And I was actually talking about how I got into technology and what makes me a good technologist. And yeah, that's how I met my future boss. And, he was quite interested in my career and just gave me a stretch opportunity and saw the potential in me instead of what was on my CV. And that's how I landed the current role I'm at. And all the other things in between when it comes to speaking. I'm also a trustee at a charity. I'm also looking to be a venture capitalist soon. All of these opportunities have come because somebody thought of me and I didn't even know they were looking at me. Right? So these opportunities have always made me feel like I need to constantly put my thoughts, my opinions, my dreams out there, because there are people who are watching you and you don't realize it, but then they take that and they hear something and the first thought in their mind is you and how they can collaborate with you. I hope that was useful, and that was the start of my introduction. And I'll now move on to the next part of my presentation, which is networking pre and post pandemic. At this point, I would request all of you to grab your smartphones. This works best with a smartphone, really, but it can also work on your laptop if that's all you have access to. If you go on to slido.com, it should be the first thing that will come up. If you just do that, and if you go on to the code that I've presented on the screen, then that will allow you to join my room, and we can start with our first poll. This is a bit of an interaction just for me to get a sense of how you feel about networking. Here we go. So I'm just waiting for some people to join. Please let me know in the chat if you're having any kind of trouble with that. Amazing, just looking for chat. Thank you, Hayden, for putting the code on. Amazing. Thank you guys for those questions. I want to know, how do you feel about networking virtually? What does that make you feel? So just looking at some of the things that are coming up on the screen here, I see lots of people are saying lost. It's great that some people are saying they feel good about it. I see a long one says, I'm not sure who to reach out to. and most do not answer without meeting in person. Completely appreciate that. Somebody has written ghost, and I find that interesting. I think you kind of mean that they ghost you, and I appreciate that. There's so much noise in today's day and age that it can often feel like nobody's listening to you or nobody wants to come back to you. That's great. Some people have said they feel unaware about it. I find it very interesting that somebody has said complex. That's very interesting. It's very possible to feel a little bit like you're not empowered enough to reach out to people. Like, why should somebody give their time to you? So that can make you feel like a little bit of inferiority complex, really. Somebody has also said they just don't know where to start. And I completely appreciate that. It can feel very impersonal to network virtually. Just looking at some of the answers, somebody said they feel hyped about it. That's great. Amazing. I think somebody said they find it a bit nerve-wracking, or they find it like they get quite nervous about it. I think just being on a screen can make things quite hard. It's very hard to see yourself and the other person, and you don't have the usual non-verbal body language signs that you can get from a conversation. Great. Thanks, guys. Thank you for all those answers. I won't keep you too long on this one. Let's move on to the next poll, if that's okay. This poll, it kind of talks about what is your favorite networking platform or event, right? The different ways of networking. So it's like a rank. So you just have to arrange them. What's your top one, your second? I have 11 here, so there's a lot, but I'll allow you to go through that long list. Great. So I think in spot number 1 at the moment, we have in-person conferences, Twitter, LinkedIn. That's good. So I guess LinkedIn is virtual. So it's good that some of you find that useful. Great. I think 11 people. We have 6 people who are quite active on Slido. So I'm going to wait for a little bit. Just gone down to the bottom to see what's at the lowest right now. So I think YouTube, speed networking, and blogs and Medium. Okay. That sounds interesting. Back to the top. I think a lot of people are saying in-person conferences again. Amazing. Great, that's 44 people. I'm thinking of 15 more. I do want to give you the opportunity to rank these. It can be quite, what's the word? It can be quite interesting for you to think about all these 11 things and ask yourself, when was I at an in-person conference last? Or when was I at a seminar? When did I use LinkedIn last? Right? Great. So I think 52 people. I think I'm going to stop there for a second and just see that in-person conferences are ranking the highest. That's great. LinkedIn, I think this is quite similar to what research has shown in terms of the effectiveness of networking. Great that I see Instagram on the top 4 there. I see some webinars, virtual conferences. Then I see some networking. Interested in Twitter, lower than I would expect it to be, but interesting, I guess. Different industries use these platforms differently. And yeah, YouTube, speed networking, and blogs are still ranking quite low. I think what is very interesting is that when we did the last poll, a lot of people felt lost, unaware, or just a bit clueless and nervous about virtual networking. But then now when you look at these rankings, right, LinkedIn is virtual, Instagram's virtual, webinars are virtual. So out of the top 5, 3 are still virtual. And then just under that, there's a few more virtual things that come up. And I guess what this poll shows you is that we probably feel a little bit nervous and anxious about virtual networking. But what's very common in today's day and age is social media. And that's everywhere, right? You can feel very nervous about it, but you're still on it. It's just how do you use it to kind of, use it to its fullest, really, and the potential that it has. Thank you guys for that. I think it brings me on to my next slide. I just thought I'll do a quick comparison between networking in person and networking online, right? Great things about networking in person, you're physically present, right? You're there, people can hear what you're saying, they can see what you're doing with your body, they can see how excited you are. My favorite thing about networking in person is really these people have come there with the intention of networking. So everybody is there. They've all agreed to this social contract that here we are to network. So that's probably the best thing about networking in person. I think the only things that I think of it as like cons, geographical constraints, right? You have to get to a physical place, and it's not always easy. I live in Northampton at the moment, and all the networking events happen in London a lot of the times, and I struggle to get there sometimes. And then this one, and some people enjoy these things. I, for one, find it a bit, a bit useless. But really, there's like networking rituals, so you have to look good, you have to dress very sharp. So a lot of small talk. So how did you get here today? What was the weather like? Have you had a good week? The small talk, right? It can sometimes take you away from the conversation, and it can become a bit, artificial. But most importantly, the events management of it, right? Like for you to get there, you have to plan how to get there. Do you have to get a hotel that night because you can't get back home? Or like, the dinner and the sitting next to strangers on a table. And something that always happens is there are awkward cliques. Like people come with their friends and then they kind of stick to their friends. And then if you're there alone to network, you're just like, who do I speak to here? Like you have to constantly put yourself out there. Well, that's how I feel about networking in person. Now, looking at networking online, right? The biggest thing about it is you can network from anywhere. There are lots of different formats of networking online. So again, it's kind of like people are there. They're probably there to network with you. In one go, you can network with lots of people. So you can network at scale. Now I have this one here, but it can be a pro and a con, but it's kind of like you're always networking. So if you're on LinkedIn, especially, you're always networking. On Twitter or Instagram, you are putting out content, but you're also like responding to people's comments or responding to DMs, and that's really networking. So it's kind of like you're always on, and that can be quite overwhelming. I guess there's a lot of cons, naturally, right? There's a goldfish span of impact. How much are people going to remember you, right? Like how much work should you put in there so people do remember you? And I guess there is a lot of, you need to do it repeatedly so that you can build a relationship. And I think a pro I thought was there's a little bit less of that events management aspect from the in-person aspect of things. But yeah, I wanted to put these together on a slide just to kind of get you to think about networking online is actually not all that bad. A lot of people post-pandemic have been saying, oh, I just miss like seeing people in person and, be it in the office or at an event. It was so different. But really, if I put it on paper, there's actually so many pros to networking online. I'll move on there to the next part of the presentation, which is about personal brand. I don't know if a lot of you have heard personal brand before. It is becoming extremely fashionable right now in the industry. Everybody talks about brand, what it is. And for a lot of people, right, brand can sound very high effort, low returns kind of a thing. Like, is it a logo? Do I need to have a logo? Do I need like professional influencer level pictures taken? No, I don't think so, right? I think personal brand is really who you are. It's your story. I love this quote. I use it everywhere I go. It's kind of these words that I've underlined on your screen. It's who you are. It's what you stand for. It's the values you embrace, and in the way that you express those values. So the who, you, the what, your niche, values, self-explanatory, right? Who are you? What makes your heart beat? What's that little fire that keeps you going? And the way that you express. Now, express is interesting, right? You can express through pictures, through blogs and words, through videos, through art, right? But that's also a very key part of your brand. And I think I always say this, that increasingly now, your personal brand is actually your digital brand. Like, who are you online as well? I guess these aspects of who, what, values, and express are very easily expressed online. This is what I think about elements of I call it a digital brand, but it's really your personal brand. And the reason I call it digital is because I'm going to show you how to bring these out online. The first thing is your brand identity. So this is what you want to show your audience. Again, you have complete control over this, right? You can be whoever you want to be. And the key part here is what you want to show, right? So you can keep some parts of your life hidden. Now, you don't have to be an influencer who's out there all the time talking about everything they're doing. You can choose to kind of make your brand identity so that you have a lot more control over it. The second element is your story, right? This is who you are. Authenticity often comes from being true to your story, not changing it too much, right? This is who you are. This is what we do. The next three aspects, actually, channels, consistency, and authenticity, these kind of go hand in hand, really. Channels, you can choose where you want to show your personal brand. Consistency and authenticity. Now, these are a bit subjective, but really try and be relevant and updated and engaged and try to be real across the board. So that's the authenticity aspect of it. And then finally, the final element of this big puzzle, which is networking. If you don't network, you're not going to get your brand out there. So all these elements that make your brand, to get them out, you really have to network, get out there and network, right? I now have a few slides that go into each of those elements in a bit more detail. And I'm going to talk you through my profiles online, so my LinkedIn, my Instagram, my Twitter, and I can show you how I try to bring these elements out. So feel free to look at your own LinkedIn, your own Instagram as you're listening to me, and try to spot these things in your brand at the moment. And if you don't have them, then think about how you're going to add that in. If you're starting, this is the first time you're thinking about brand identity, I just want you to think of three things. And for each, come up with a phrase. And when I say a phrase, make sure it's not above 3 words. What do you stand for? What does your brand stand for? Right? What makes you different? And what do people say about you when you're not there? If you came up with 3 phrases for each, not for each, but like one for each of these questions, that's perfect. That can be the foundation of your brand. Now let me show you what I mean by that. So for me, what do I stand for, right? I stand for pivoting your career. By pivoting, I kind of mean like changing your career whenever you want to get a promotion, get a raise, start your own business. Pivoting your career any way you want to. That's what I stand for. So I call myself a career pivot queen. What makes me different? I like to keep this a little bit about my hard skills, right? What makes me different is that I am an established award-winning IT consultant. I'm very proud of that. I want people to know that I am an award-winning IT consultant. And finally, when I'm not there, I think people say that I'm a tech career speaker. I think some people think of me and they think of, oh, she changed careers. She is an award-winning IT consultant. She loves talking about social mobility. She loves talking about personal brand. So yeah, that's what she does. She kind of talks about tech careers and just careers in general. So think about it. Just take a minute if you have a pen and paper. Kind of try to plot these three things. I find it interesting that my brand should have these three things. They're a bit different from each other, really. One is like my values, one is who I am, and the third thing is how I want people to see me. And if you did that for yourself, then I think that's all you need to just get started at the moment. Amazing. When you can think of three things, please feel free to just put them into the chat. I'm reading them as we go, and if I spot something interesting, I'm happy to give you feedback. Again, right, you see my LinkedIn, my Twitter, Instagram on your page, on your screen. So please feel free to tweet to me or write to me and ask me to look at your brand identity, and I'm happy to give you feedback after the event as well. Moving on. This slide. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about how do you express that brand identity, right? Very quickly, these are the 4 things you can do. You can do these in the next 10 minutes. Go look at your LinkedIn headline. So this is the headline. It is just under your profile picture on LinkedIn. Come up with a few words. These 3 phrases that I've asked you to come up with, add them there. See what happens. The next thing is your profile picture. Now, it really should just be like a professional picture. If you're on Instagram, it can be a little bit more expressive. But really, just make it a picture, be approachable. Look like who you want to be, who you want people to see you as. I think a LinkedIn cover image is also a good way of kind of showing a little bit of your identity. So that's actually a picture from What It Takes 2019. And I love that picture. I feel like I look like myself. I'm talking and I'm surrounded by some powerful women and amazing women. So I really think that if somebody came to my LinkedIn and they saw that, I think it gives them an impression of me. And then finally, your Twitter and your Instagram bio, very similar to your LinkedIn headline. These 3 phrases, just go put them on there. Don't think too much about it. Great. Moving on to the next slide. I guess after these things like profile pictures and bios and things, your brand identity is really everything else after that as well. Coming to the second element of your brand, your story. Now, this is where you give a little bit more information about you. I think your brand identity can catch somebody's eye, and then they spend a little time to look at your story, and then you kind of reel that in, right? So you have your LinkedIn About section again. So here you are. Don't keep it empty, right? It's a chance. Somebody is literally, they're there. They're here to look at you. So take that opportunity, grasp it, and just put your story out there. Now, don't think about things like, what do they want? What are people looking at me for? Doesn't matter. Show them who you think you are. So in my case, I've kind of written a little bit about work. I am still an early career, somebody who's still quite junior in the industry. So I talk a little bit about the things I've done. I love highlighting my achievements. I want people to know these things, right? I have done them, so why not talk about them? And I kind of talk a little bit about my potential, because I want people to see me for what I'm going to be, not always by my resume. So I kind of use this About section in a more aspirational way, in a more kind of like I'm manifesting something. Again, you can do the same thing with your About Us section on your personal website, your first tweet on Twitter. I think that's a good way to kind of express who you are. So make your Twitter pinned tweet to be something about you. Instagram highlights, right? If somebody comes onto your Instagram, they can look at your posts, sure, but your Instagram highlights can have a bit more. So like if you go on to mine, not at the moment actually, I've taken them off, but really they can say, oh, these are the conferences I've been to, these are the talks I've done, these are the awards I've won, and it allows people to know me a little bit. I always say this, like, don't pressure yourself too much to be like, oh, it has to look perfect. No, your story will change, your brand will change. It's completely fine, right? You can update your LinkedIn section, you can update your Twitter, you can update your Instagram as many times as you want. Moving on to the third element of your brand, channels. I'm not going to go into this in a lot of detail here because we're going to discuss that in a lot more detail in a few slides. But really, when you're thinking about channels, be realistic. We all want to go viral on TikTok. We all want to have millions of subscribers on YouTube. And, it's a process of getting there. But when you're starting out, choose your channels in a way that it works for your brand and it works for your audience. I'm going to go into a lot more detail and hopefully, I'll be able to show you what I mean by your brand and your audience. I thought I'd take the opportunity of quickly showing you my current profiles. These are my primary profiles that I follow or I use. So LinkedIn is definitely, I would say, very important to me and something I use a lot. Then there's my Twitter and then there's my Instagram. I think I want you to notice what my bio says everywhere. So if somebody was looking for me and they found me on Instagram first or Twitter first, it wouldn't matter because I try to keep them consistent where I can. I try to use the same language. My content is very different, right? It can be very different on LinkedIn. It's words and it's professional content. Twitter, I am a little bit more bold and open on Twitter. I really kind of talk about what enrages me, but also what I'm very passionate about. And then Instagram, I try to be a little bit more aesthetic and visually pleasing content. But I want my brand to be the same, so I try to use the same picture everywhere. If I change one, then I go change all of them, really. And I'm fine with, like showing parts of my life. So I make sure that I kind of manage that. But whenever somebody looks at me, I just want them to know me for who I am. And I guess that brings me to my second point, which is consistency and authenticity, right? It's good to be consistent. It's good to be like one real person. Again, have like lots of different profiles on Instagram. Say if you're an artist and you're also a cook and you're also like an, like a big writer, right? It doesn't matter. You can have lots of profiles. Play with it. But just try and make sure that your brand is kind of the same. Somebody found you, they found all of you, right? Not parts of you. Amazing. Moving on, I guess this is obviously the reason we are all here and we're talking. But networking. Now, everything we've discussed, all these elements, they all need to go towards one cause, networking. This is really the reason why you do this, why you have a personal brand. So you meet people and people know you and they think of you. And this is kind of true, especially if you're young and you're just starting out in your respective industries in your careers. Eventually, right, the more you do this, as your career grows, your brand will grow. And really, one of these days, when your brand is when I say successful, it's not about numbers, it's not about followers. It's about, what kind of opportunities is that brand attracting? But really, one of these days, your brand will kind of be the thing that networks for you. Like you won't have to do things. People will constantly come to you. I've kind of invested in my personal brand for about a year now, and I'm still not where I want my brand to be, but really, I'm starting to get people who just like message me and they say, oh, somebody told me about you. I've looked at your profile. Can you come do an event for us? Or somebody will message me and they say, oh, you know what? We have a role. The role is not available for the next 3 months, but we thought of you. Would you like to think, about it? So I'm finally coming to a point where I am not the person messaging people saying, hi, I want this from you. People are coming to me saying, could we work with you, right? Could we collaborate with you? So really, you need to invest in networking for a bit, and then eventually your brand will network for you. Amazing. I'm just going to take a quick water break there. Amazing. Moving on to the next part of my presentation, which is about your voice and your niche. The secret and the first step is that you have a voice. We often say, you need to find your voice. Really, no, don't go looking for it. You have it. Just try and believe that you have it and try to improve it. But 3 things to remember when it comes to your voice. You don't have to be an expert. There are lots of experts out there. Great, that's their brand. But not being an expert is also a brand. You can very proudly say, I am not an expert. I'm trying to learn about things. It's attractive. It's very attractive when you see somebody who's open to opportunities, when you see somebody who wants to do and be more, like somebody who's not taking no for an answer. It's very powerful. I really think you don't have to be successful. You don't have to have a senior position. You can still have an opinion. You can still be curious. That's what I class myself as. I have a lot of imposter syndrome. Even if I'm doing a talk like this, I say, why should people listen to me? I barely have 3 to 4 years of experience. I was in uni 3 years ago. I really don't have like a beautiful job title like C-suite, or I'm not like an Oscar winner or something crazy like that, right? But really, I think there's so many people out there who are probably at my career stage, similar background as me, maybe, and maybe they benefit from seeing my growth and my career. So yes, you don't have to be successful to have an opinion. And then finally, like I said, it's very attractive when you're manifesting the life that you want. And that's a great brand to have. Great. I love this slide. This is my favorite slide. If you fall into any of these categories, please feel free to take a screenshot. I mean, I know we're going to send these presentations out, but this is my favorite slide. I'm going to give you 3 examples very quickly. If you're a graduate, you're a professional, you're an entrepreneur, I think this is a very general, vague look of it, but this can be your niche. Like I literally think you can walk away from my presentation today and be like, yes, I know what my niche is. If you're on the chat, can you please drop me just a quick message to say if you're a graduate, a professional, or an entrepreneur, so I can see in the audience how many entrepreneurs, how many professionals I have, so I can spend more time on those. Great. I see student. I have a professional, an entrepreneur, grad. Great. Student and graduates. Lovely. I see somebody who's a student, but is also an entrepreneur. Fantastic. You can be both, obviously. Amazing. Great. Thank you, guys. So in terms of niche, let's start with the student one, because there are lots of students on the call. Obviously, we're at a university event. I think your niche can be you're somebody who's aspiring, right? You are curious about like something, right? You can be a medical sciences student or somebody who's studying nanotechnology, but you're aspiring for that career. And you specialize in something. You're studying. You're doing like theory that professionals have forgotten for a while, to be honest, but you specialize in something. Take pride in that. You are following your passion. That takes a lot of guts. So you're doing that. You're spending 3 years of your life, so flaunt it. You create content that shows that you are exploring something. Can be a bit confusing. I think, right? I post content sometimes it says something like, oh, I am reading this book about venture capital, and in that I read XYZ. But when I do that, people message me saying, oh, so you're reading that book. What do you think about it? And that's great. That's networking. Even if you post content that says, oh, I went to uni today and my lecturer said a cool thing, that's amazing. I look at you and I think that's so cool. They are learning something new today. And then you kind of practice thought leadership. I won't go into what thought leadership is, but feel free to Google it. Thought leadership is when you are a leader by your thoughts, right? You think like a leader. That's it. So you can practice thought leadership by learning. You can say, I'm going to be successful, right? So I am learning about it, and watch me learn about it. And the reason that you do personal branding and networking is because you are trying to find mentors and role models, people who are going to give you that first break into the industry, people who are going to sponsor you, they're going to champion you, right? By using your niche, that's who you're trying to find. I don't know about how many followers you're going to get. I can't promise you going viral and trending on TikTok and Instagram, but I can promise you that you will find people who are looking for people like you. And sometimes that's all you need to break into the next two categories, professional and entrepreneur. So professional, you're somebody who is already doing something. That's great, right? Now think about all the content you've seen about a day in the life of. So you are a doer, you're already doing it. You specialize in your industry. You are so good at something, somebody's paying you to do it. And if you ask me, that's all the specialization I need to know about. As a professional, you can create educational content. So you can say, like in my case, I say I'm a project manager, and to make a project plan, you can do these things. You can read these books, you can check out these articles, you can check out these videos, right? That's great. People love it when I do that. They love when I'm trying to show them things they can learn from as well. You network as a professional primarily by connecting with people. So you connect with people by saying hello, but you also kind of connect to people. You allow different people to connect with each other, and that brings you joy as a professional. And it also increases your influence, right? So that's what you do. You network primarily by connecting with people. We talked about thought leadership, right? So you practice thought leadership by creating specialist content. Unlike a student who practices that by showing that they're learning, you do that by just creating content that says, oh, I am a music director, so this is, or a producer, right? And this is what I think about XYZ. And finally, right, while students are trying to find mentors and role models, you as a professional, you can also do that, by the way, but really what you're doing is you're showing people that you're ready for the next level. So what I mean by that is, think of somebody who is, let's say, head of artificial intelligence somewhere, and they're a professional. Their personal branding, what they want to do is they want to become a CEO of like some AI building startup, right? And that's what they're attracting through their personal branding. So you're constantly creating content to take you to the next level. You don't want to stay at whatever level you're at forever, right? You're trying to move up. So that's what your niche is. Entrepreneur. I think I've seen some entrepreneurs today. First of all, big shout out to you. And my slides have done something stupid. There we go. So for all the entrepreneurs out here, I think the first thing about your brand is that you are a pioneer and you're already a leader. Somebody who goes out there and says, I am going to do something on my own, you're already a leader. It doesn't matter how many years you've done this for. It doesn't matter like how successful your startup is. You're doing something and that makes you a leader. It also makes you a pioneer because you're doing something different and new and you're probably doing something unique. So you are a pioneer. Your content, right, or your brand you're constantly saying, I have a solution to a problem. I think I saw somebody say that they had like a clothing brand, which was very interesting. Yeah, somebody said they're a student with a clothing brand, right? I think it was Sarah. Hi, Sarah. You have a clothing brand, and maybe you have a niche in your clothing brand. Say you make clothes that are sustainable and they're made out of sustainable fabrics. You have a solution to the problem of, climate change, etc. And the solution is you and your brand, your clothing brand. So you're constantly saying, I have a solution, please listen to me. You have a specialist product. Again, in Sarah's case, her clothing brand, her clothes, they're a specialist product. It's very important to know now the difference between graduates and professionals and entrepreneurs is that entrepreneurs, right, they need to make money off of this. So their brand is constantly, or it should constantly generate them business. If they're spending time building their brand, it means they're not spending time on their business. So really, a good entrepreneur will make sure that whatever they do generates more business for them. It becomes interesting when you're somebody who is talking about their business. You very easily become the face of the business. Now let's think about some examples, right? Like Microsoft. Bill Gates became the face of it. Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, they became the faces for their companies. The same way you can think of the founder of Uber? Uber's big, Uber's massive. Can you think about the founder for Netflix? Netflix is massive. We all have it. We all use it. The same way, right? We can think of, I'm trying to think of other entrepreneurs, like, I feel bad, but Gwyneth Paltrow for Goop. You may not know Goop, but you know Gwyneth Paltrow, and you know she is doing some crazy things with this brand she has called Goop. But they have become the face of their business. Another thing an entrepreneur does is they use their personality to market their business. So I look at some entrepreneurs, they are fashionable, right? And because I love their style, I go and I buy clothes from them or whatever business they have. The same way you can have people who are like, they can be speakers, they can be actors, and they have side businesses. And I don't know about their business, but I know them. I love their personality. I want to be like them. So I'll go, buy something from their business. And finally, what you do is you create content that is to educate your market, but more importantly, your customers. So say you were in the business of creating, sustainable fashion. You would constantly, on your platforms, to people you're talking to, you would constantly say everything that's wrong with the world and climate change. You're educating them. You're constantly telling them why we all need to go in the direction of sustainability. And in that, you are creating customers who will come buy these products from you. Having said that, I thought I'll quickly show you guys what I think my niche and my personal brand is. And as you can see, niche, right? The secret's in the word, niche. So it needs to be a few things. But my personal brand, there's so many things. I'm so many people, right? I love being so many people. But I am an award-winning tech consultant. I am a project manager, scrum master. I went from journalism to tech. I love changing careers. I'm going to change my careers at least a dozen times in the future as well. I am an aspiring venture capitalist. I am a board trustee. I love helping women specifically break into technology. I am an advocate for social mobility. I do some other things. I love being a content creator. I see myself as a YouTuber. If you go find me on YouTube, the videos are still from my journalism days. But you know what? I think I'm a YouTuber. I'm going to get there. But this is my personal brand, and my niche, as I've mentioned to you before, is I am a career pivot queen. I love talking about tech careers that don't require code. So, as an IT consultant, it's very closely linked to what I do. And then finally, I'm a tech mentor and industry speaker. So if you if you compare the last slide to my brand, I would say I fall into the category of professional. So a lot of my content that I create is kind of, I am showing the world I want to be, a board trustee, a venture capitalist, CEO, right? But I also kind of show things about like, oh, so what can you do to get into technology? What kind of careers are out there for you? I also mentor people so I can share my experience with them and have an impact on their careers. But really, if you took this slide, I fall into the professional category. Give yourself a little challenge, right? See if, like me, and use mine as an example, right? Try to create that for you. Make a list. Make a list of all the things that you think you are. And before you know it, you'll have your personal brand. Amazing. Gonna take a small break. Till we move on. Again, this is a lovely part of the presentation. This is the part where you think. Again, you keep making notes for yourself. Inspiration strikes at different times. Inspiration strikes as I talk to you, right? It's a very heavy slide. There's loads going on the slide. With this, I'm going to help you pick what I think should be your social channels. Literally, at the end of the slide, it would be great if you could just write down what you think your brand is and what platform is perfect for you. As you can see, I have divided the slide into 4 quadrants. Each quadrant kind of talks about a specific medium. Now, this comes back from my journalism days, right? Like I did print journalism, TV journalism, radio, all sorts of things. And it always made me think like some things are best said on a certain platform. So like a podcast is great, but I hate it, absolutely hate it, when somebody puts a podcast on YouTube, right, with like a still image. Pisses me off. Like, just leave it on Spotify. I will listen to it on Spotify. Like, trust the medium of what you're trying to say. But really, this can really help you kind of figure out where you should be online. So the first quadrant says your brand is textual. And please pay attention to the first line that I've written in each quadrant. First, it talks about what you like to do. Great, congratulations. But more importantly, what do your audience want? What do they want to say, right? So if you think your brand is textual, it means that you like to express in text. It can be long or short form, doesn't matter. But more importantly, your audience prefers to read what you have to say. So professionally, for me, right, my future boss, the person who gives me my next CEO opportunity, I don't think they're on TikTok. I think they're probably reading what I have to say. They get more impressed when they read something that I do. So that's the reason I will go with platforms such as LinkedIn, Twitter, having a blog, personal website. And you're going to see personal website everywhere in my slides because I really think everybody should have a personal website. But yeah, having your personal website, that can be textual, so that's great. People are going to come look at you for that. And then newsletters and ebooks. Anybody can write an ebook in today's day and age. You can just write one right now, post it on Amazon, and it will take you barely 24 hours. But yeah, if that's what you want to do, these platforms are great. I think when it comes to the written word, I think it's lost on today's day and age. I think sometimes you kind of feel like there is so much information out there. Where is the time to read something? But you'll be surprised. The audience that sticks around and reads is the best audience to have because you've captured their attention. You can influence them to do a lot of things. Buy things from your business, aggregate your content, all sorts of things. I mean, even on Instagram, you read people's captions, don't you? Like I do. I love reading people's captions. When somebody says everything is below in my caption, I'm the first one there. So yeah, I think sometimes we forget how effective the written word is, but luckily these amazing platforms, they also allow you to use like audio visual things to make your written word more effective. Moving on to the next quadrant. You think your brand is visual and it's creative. Again, please pay attention to what your audience likes, right? You like to express in pictures, photography, graphic design, and art. Your audience prefers to see your content. I'm not saying watch, because that's different in my opinion. I think your audience prefers to see it. It needs to be still for them. They want to analyze it. They want to look at it. They want to interpret it, right, in their own way. So for you, Instagram, Pinterest, Behance, and a personal website, so like your personal portfolio. I think this would work well if you were like an art student, fine art student, you were like a graphic designer, and most importantly, if you were a photographer. Think we all see lots of reels of photographers kind of transforming their images, but you know, I'm paying too much attention on your transitions, man. I'm paying attention to your audio, right? I'm not looking at your photograph, the thing that I should be paying attention to. You want, like, you know, you want to make money by taking pictures. So feel confident in just sharing pictures. So yeah, Instagram, Pinterest, Behance, and personal website for people like that. And in case I didn't mention it, if you're textual, you can be an academic, you can be a writer, you can be a blogger, and all those sort of things, right? Like anything that has to do with text. Then moving on to the third quadrant, which is your brand is audiovisual. And this is different from visual and creative, right? In this, you like to express in videos and movies. And this is interesting. You want to put your face and your voice out there. Like you want people to know who you are. This can be a bit different from somebody who is like, you know, prefers to be textual. They probably don't want to be identified, but you do. Whoever is kind of audiovisual, I think I am like, I want my brand to be audiovisual. I care about like my face. I want people to like, you know, see my face, right? I would love to be a model one of these days. But really, your audience prefers to watch your content. So this is where Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok come in. It's true that some of these are a lot more effective than the others. But at the same time, they take that much more effort. Like making a good piece of audiovisual content can take time and effort, right? So it's not for everybody. And let's not force everybody to make reels. Let's not force everybody to make TikToks. So if you are somebody who has, let's say, a beauty-based business, say you do nails, don't worry about it, right? If you don't like making reels, not the biggest problem in the world. Reels will get you a lot of traction. So it really is a give and take, right? Really think about these things when you're kind of really talking about your business, especially, or yourself. But these things can make a big difference. And then finally, something that is gaining a lot of attention recently. Your brand is sound and audio based. I don't just mean if you create music, but it's perfect for musicians, for music producers, but it's also great for podcasters, right? You like to express yourself with sound. Your audience prefers to listen what you have to say. SoundCloud is great for music and stuff. Podcasts, obviously, Spotify and Apple podcasts. But the next two things, right? These are new. These are brand new. They were the hottest thing in town when they first came about. So Twitter Spaces. Twitter now allows you to basically have Clubhouse on Twitter, but you just speak. No sound, no tweets. You just talk to people and you hear from people as well. Same with Clubhouse. I have Clubhouse on my phone till date. I didn't use it a lot, but it was amazing when it came out. Everybody was on it. I couldn't believe it, right? Like I still can't believe that people wanted to be in a room of people and be talked at. But then it kind of made me think people are cooking, they are, you know, they're at the gym, they're on a run, people are very busy. So they kind of want to listen to things as opposed to reading or watching. So I think at the end of this slide, I hope that's helped you kind of think a little bit about all the questions that I'm seeing on the chat, which are about what platform shall I choose. I hope this slide can answer these questions. Great. I am super conscious of time, so I'm going to keep it super short. I think this is my last slide. But today, walking away, I want you to think of build a brand, right? Like build a bear. I was trying to be a bit clever there. But I think build a brand, just do these things, and you have a personal brand. So as you said, the first pick 3 phrases to define your niche. Thank you, everybody who has shared theirs on the chat. I promise I will take time personally to read them. Even better to reach me is just tweet me or write me, a DM on LinkedIn or Instagram, and I promise I'll respond and come back to you. But yeah, pick 3 phrases to describe your niche. Somebody asked me this question, and I love that question. It said, can you have multiple brands? Thank you, Lokesh, for asking that question. Yes, you can have multiple brands. Do whatever you like, right? If your personal brand is all those things, it's completely fine to have multiple channels, one channel that is textual, one channel that is audiovisual, right? So in my case, I have a YouTube, I do LinkedIn, I have a personal website, I have a Medium, and I also have Instagram. So I'm kind of doing that entire spectrum of things. And I like that. That's just who I am, right? As we said, make sure you choose some platforms for you. Make sure they're right for you. Make sure you leverage each platform for what it is, right? Like if you were somebody who was posting pictures on Twitter every day, I'm sorry, but it's just not how Twitter works. Same way, if you were somebody on Instagram who was just constantly writing things and putting it on a square, no, that's not going to work either. That's not going to get you those people. If you were on TikTok, right, and you were not creating anything or just creating pictures and putting lots of pictures in one TikTok, it's not going to work. So really, allow yourself to think about each of the platforms. How are you going to use the strength of that platform to service your brand? Make sure you kind of sense check the consistency of your brand, right? Like I said, put them together and see if you can see one person through it all. It'll really help. Embrace creators economy. This is my favorite. Again, Google creators economy. I can talk about it for hours and we don't have the time. But all I'm going to say, creators economy is now in today's day and age, people care about the people who create. If you're somebody who wants to see something, watch something, and it just doesn't exist, then go create it, right? In my case, I want to be a venture capitalist, right? Am I going to leave my job and go and be an intern right now? I don't know. But what I can do is I can talk about venture capital and somebody will notice me. And that's creators economy. You create who you want to be. So just create content. Somebody is going to watch it. Like the right person's going to watch it. Make sure you kind of pick a bit of a routine. I hate social media strategies. It's a full-time job. But really, just, every day, just before lunch, I take 5 minutes to post on my LinkedIn, my Twitter, my Instagram, whatever I'm feeling that day. But I try and get into a habit, and it helps with things like writer's block, or just like a creator's block where you feel like, oh, I have nothing interesting in my day today. I almost force myself to it's 12 o'clock. What's happened to me? Like today I posted that I am doing this talk, right? Not the most exciting thing for my audience, maybe, but for me, that's cool. I have just stuck to my routine. And yeah, the biggest thing is it's so easy to be on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter and see people have thousands and thousands of followers, seeing people have that blue tick against their name, or you see people going on holidays, buying beautiful bags and stuff, and they say, oh, it's all because of my social media. It's good for them, It doesn't have to be everybody's reality, and you actually don't need 1 million followers before you start seeing some success and some opportunities. I have barely any followers, and I think I'm successful, and I'm very proud of the people and the opportunities my brand and my network is attracting. It's more than enough. Don't be too strict. It's kind of like there comes a point where you do this for helping you out in your career, in your business. And then one of these days, your brand can become so big that your brand becomes your business. And that's a whole different conversation. We're going to have to talk about something else, right? Like we're going to have to change our entire strategy when it comes to social media if that became your business. But remember that it's not your business, maybe, right? And if it's not, then there's no reason to put a lot of pressure on you, but be like, I need these many followers or I need to be successful. Success is fluid and it changes all the time. Just think about what can I do so the right opportunity comes and finds me. Completely forgot. This was my final slide. Networking at scale. If you have a digital brand, you don't have to message people individually. Your brand will just do the talking for you. So for example, with me on Instagram, LinkedIn. I post so often on LinkedIn that say I've met somebody 2 years ago and they've forgotten me, but my content doesn't let them forget me. And that's networking at scale. I don't kind of direct it at one person. I just do it into like the void, the universe. And I believe that somebody is watching, the right people are watching me. So really think of that aspect of it. Make sure you network at scale. Make sure you define your audience. That can be quite key. So be on Instagram if you're trying to attract younger people, millennials, Gen Z. LinkedIn is great if you're looking at people who are maybe a bit more senior than you, do different things, depends on your industry. In any case, wherever you are, make sure you follow people in your industry. It's all about, mother algorithm. You have to keep feeding that algorithm. So make sure you follow those experts in your industry. And if you do, the algorithm will then kind of highlight you to people in that industry. Make sure you ask for interviews. People love talking about themselves. If you give them one compliment, they will just talk to you about anything. So do that. Message them. Say, I love your career. I love this award you've won. Absolutely love this thing you're doing. Can you talk to me about it? Yes. People love it. Give them a chance and they'll never stop talking about themselves. A compliment goes a long way, And then, I think the last 3 things are just seek people who are like you, people who can support you. Ask for referrals. So in my case, if I'm applying for a job, say I'm applying for a job at Facebook, it's stupid if I just go onto Facebook's career website and just drop an application, right? What I do is I search my LinkedIn, I type Facebook, it shows me all my connections who currently work at Facebook. I message them and I say, hi, I saw this job, I really like it, can you please refer me? If people refer you and you get the job, they get money. Don't forget this. If you ask for help, you'll be surprised how many people want to help you. So make sure you seek out mentors and referrals. Again, follow the companies and your prospective employers. I've seen some questions come up. If you keep following those companies, sometimes things just come up like on your feed and then you go, oh, you know what? I don't have to go looking for this job because LinkedIn has reminded me that they have this vacancy. And then finally, make sure you join communities and networks. It's kind of like when you're in a group, you're not alone anymore and you're kind of all working towards the same thing. So make sure you do that. I want to make sure I leave lots of time for questions, guys. So I'm going to stop with my slides here. Thank you very, very much. Again, your feedback, as amazing as it is when you type it on the chat and when you do the feedback survey, I would love it if you just tweeted at me about what you thought about the session. If you, share an Instagram story of this slide, right? It goes a long way when you interact with my platforms, and that's what we're here for. So follow me and I'll follow you back as well. Thank you. Over to you, Jim.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rituja. Thank you so much for the presentation. So many excellent insights there into networking, into personal branding, into what it takes to turn those networks into opportunities. So I'm sure everybody in the audience found it useful. I can tell they did from all the stuff in the chat. So we have some questions, right? So the team have been pulling them all together. So I'll go through kind of some of the questions. Let's go through some of these questions. I'm going to start with a little bit on LinkedIn because there's a number of questions there. So Mahira asked, and this is a classic question, what kind of things can you mention in your LinkedIn headline if you're a student without experience, right? So in other words, you obviously can draw on a lot of experience to kind of drop into your kind of LinkedIn bio. So what's your advice to someone just starting out? What should go in that kind of top line of LinkedIn?
Sure. I think like I kind of talked about in my presentation, right? Those 3 phrases. So I can tell you a little bit about when I was a journalism student, my LinkedIn bio said aspiring journalist, right? You can say aspiring data scientist, right? Or you can also call yourself a data science enthusiast. Now, these are a little bit of a cliche, I'm not going to lie to you, but if you are quite serious about it and the rest of your brand is going to show that you are an aspiring or an enthusiast in that field, that's completely fine. So that can be your first tag. The second thing can say something about, where you're going to graduate from. So it can be, I'm a University of Westminster graduate. That can be a second thing that goes on there. The third thing can be if you volunteered anywhere, right? Now, work experience. Yes, one of those things you can only kind of say you've done a work experience when it's industry specified or whatever. But say you organize something in university or you have a YouTube channel for the sake of it. There's no reason that should not be on there. That is your lived experience. So people talk about work experience. There's also something called lived experience. It's just the experience of life, and it's completely fine to put that out there. So yeah, 3 things, and that should be on your headline.
Brilliant. Okay, more LinkedIn. So, because I think lots of people, have LinkedIns and they want to kind of make them work more effectively. So Anna asked, how would you go about searching for opportunities on LinkedIn? Is it a question of general searching? Is it a question of kind of contacting specific mentors, as you just mentioned, searching through your contacts who work at Facebook? What's your advice there?
Yeah, I think I probably answered this from the perspective of a student, right? In the sense that you don't probably have this amazing network that you're trying to build at the moment. Something to do is make sure you set up LinkedIn job alerts. You'll be surprised how quickly jobs come in and out of the market. There's really no human way of keeping up with them. So make sure you go onto your LinkedIn, and if you just go onto jobs, you can turn on something called a job alert, which allows you to pick the title of your job, the location, and you can get an email and a LinkedIn notification daily. It'll just send you a list of things that's out there. Make sure you apply in the same day. LinkedIn is notorious for people just putting posts like job posts out there and taking them off, right? That's one thing you can do. The second thing you can do is to kind of start, once you look at a LinkedIn job post, it'll always show you the person who's advertised that. So that it'll say the recruiter. And this will be somebody like, oh, this person is a recruiting consultant at Facebook or Google or whatever. Drop them a message. Just add them on LinkedIn. They're not going to accept it, right? You can send 100 invitations to connect with people, and even if 5 people accepted it, that's a win, if you ask me, right? So just do that. You probably don't want a job at Google right now, but maybe in 5 years' time, having that connection is going to be the game changer for you. Thank you, Jim.
Brilliant. You have touched on a question related to LinkedIn, which Mahira asked about the best way to reach out to others on LinkedIn to build connections and find mentors for the first time. As you say, you can send out those requests and they get turned down. I mean, if you do get turned down or nothing comes from it, how many times do you resend that request before there's a problem? What is the best way to build those connections when you're starting cold?
Yeah, to be honest, I never realize if somebody's rejected it. It's a beauty of it, right? I want to say about 100 connection requests every day. There's no possible way for me to figure out who's rejected me. And, it's a blessing. I never really have to know. I just care about the people who have accepted that request. So all I would say is make sure you have like a tag that you send people. So mine says, hi, I'm Rituja. I loved your LinkedIn profile. I met you at XYZ because that's a personal aspect of it. And then I say, I'd love to connect with you on here. Thank you. That's it. It's a very standard message. I make sure I don't send a connection request without it. Maybe that's the best thing you can do. Just don't send out like an empty thing. It means somebody has to click on your profile, check you out. Nobody's going to do that, right? So just send a quick thing. If they think they may have met you, they're going to accept you. Everybody's trying to connect, guys. Everybody wants that 500 plus on their profile. They want those followers. So it's kind of like people are there to network with you, you know? So yeah, just take that first step.
Okay, last LinkedIn question. So, quite a few of the people here are kind of into the idea of freelancing. So, what do you say? What's the best way to represent yourself as a freelancer on LinkedIn? What do you say?
I think really the best way is to be somebody who is kind of already doing it. What I mean by that is you could be, you know, starting out as a freelancer today and maybe you only have one client, but the world doesn't need to know that. You need to present yourself as somebody who has hundreds of clients. You're rejecting jobs left, right, and center. And the way to do that, and I feel bad saying this actually, it's not the best for probably people who identify as introverts, but really just putting a Instagram reel out there or a TikTok or even a LinkedIn post about something you've created, just saying that you worked with somebody goes a long way. It kind of gives people the false sense of success. And you can use this false sense of success to actually create real success for yourself, right? So just do that. Like say you're a freelancer who creates logos for people. Say you don't have a client yet. Just create like an imaginary logo, put it out there, right? And the beauty of TikTok and Reels, you don't have to talk. Just use like the trending sound, put it out there. Here's a logo. You didn't get paid for this logo, but guess what? You're going to get clients because of this logo. So yeah, that's how I would start as a freelancer.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rituja. Okay, that's the LinkedIn questions. Now, two people have asked variations of this question, Stephanie and Lokesh, and this is about if you're using your personal social media accounts as a kind of platform to build your personal brand with a view to kind of getting jobs, building a career, could those personal social media accounts have a problematic effect on your niche? Because obviously, I think Stephanie has said, maybe we should, is it okay to remain private on Facebook and Instagram because you obviously got personal pictures there, I guess the answer there is like, if you do have personal channels, should you have a professional version for your professional life, or is there a way of bringing those together? What do you think?
I have a professional and a private. And my private is obviously private, and I only accept friends who I know by face. But the answer is yes, it's possible, right? Think about your favorite Instagram influencer. They actually share a lot about their personal life, like what their kid looks like, what they had for dinner on Sunday, or which friend they went to hang out with. And that's fine because that's their brand. I think when it comes to professional or personal social media, you kind of need to think about that exact thing. What is your brand? In my case, being an IT consultant, being somebody who wants to be like a tech leader, I don't think anybody wants to know where I partied last Friday. And that does not do service for my brand. However, I know entrepreneurs who have like a fashion brand, and for them, it's actually quite cool to be out there at the coolest club on a Friday in London wearing like their best outfit. So you really need to think about those things. I always drag it back to one thing that dictates what goes on my private and my personal. I always think, if I was running for a presidential election tomorrow, what do I not want to come up? Right? And it can be something as simple as my Yorkshire pudding filled with gravy. I don't want somebody to use that against me later on. So it's a very simple anecdote, and you can apply that to everything that you do. But yeah, just think about that. What do you not want to resurface? And if you can kind of choose that, then it doesn't matter if it's professional or private. It's just, be a good human.
Okay. Maybe not a presidential run from you next year, but maybe give yourself 10 years, Rituja. Then maybe you'll kind of ready your presidential campaign. We've had some general questions. No, this is a good question, because obviously you saw from the poll you did on Slido that people still kind of value those real world networking events. And I think we actually got a question from Mohammed. here. Like, what tips would you give us for following up with panelists at a networking event for our career progression? So obviously you've talked a lot about virtual networking, but you know, the real world networking is coming back, and a lot of people do like that. So what are the tips? So, you know, you've been to a great panel, you get a chance to go up afterwards and make contact. What are your tips there for the best ways to follow up?
Yeah, sure. I do think it's actually quite hard to stand out when you're in a real life network. There's a panelist, and the panelist is one person, but they're speaking to thousands of people. So it's very hard to catch their attention. What I recommended, and I do this all the time, I was at a conference yesterday and I've literally walked away with so many like job offers, etc. But what it was I would message a panelist saying, hi, I was at the name of your panel, the name of the event that you were there. Pick one thing that they said at the panel. Now, this is the thing. People who are fakers and people who are authentic, the difference is how keenly were you listening to that, right? And can I be honest? I don't pay attention to all panels. It's not humanly possible. But I pay attention to the panelists that I care about and I want to connect with them. So tell them the one thing that they've said, literally try to quote it, add your interpretation of that. So I'll say something like, oh, you said that it's very important to switch off, right? And care about your well-being. I do this by practicing yoga. What a stupid thing to say, but they care. And then say, the next sentence should be, oh, I remember the time you won the award for being a wellness expert. Just giving you an example. It was amazing when you did that. I would love to connect with you on here. I guarantee you that that's going to get caught because, like I said, people love compliments. Don't you love compliments, right? Just think about it. If you message me today by saying something like, oh, your talk changed my life, or, you know, I've seen you do this, I possibly can't reject your request. You know, I will think of you as a well-wisher. And can I be honest? I usually am. I love people. I love supporting and rooting them. So when I say these things to people, these are not empty compliments, you know. So even if you use an empty compliment, I will not hold anything against you. You know, do what you can to get in there.
I mean, I think sometimes people, when they're networking, they feel they have to promote themselves, right? But actually, it's much better to pick something out about the person you're talking to and let them then talk a bit, so you don't put all the pressure on yourself to promote yourself, right? So, okay, here's thinking about online networking and in-person networking. Zainab asks, which is better, right? Is online networking better or more effective than in-person networking? I think Zainab prefers online networking. If you had to pick, right, Rituja, which is more effective for you?
It's quite hard to say, super honestly. For me, it's a mix of the two, right? I think in today's day and age, online networking is more important. You can't get away without doing it. So if I turned up and met somebody tomorrow at an event and they said, oh, lovely to meet you, Rituja, I'd love to speak to you again, and they went and looked me up online and I didn't exist, that relationship is lost completely. Right? So the way I think of it is I need to have this online presence. There's no escaping it. And my online presence is actually not just about me reaching out to people, but people reaching out to me. And then the second aspect of it, the networking in person, those are relationships that I kind of carry forward for the rest of my life, right? But I always do that by the intention of, here's my online presence. These are all the things that I am. You can think of me as somebody credible, and you can now talk to me and you can give me those real opportunities, if you know what I mean, right? So you need to do both. I personally still prefer in-person networking, right? But I don't have the money and the power to do it all the time. Like, I can't be in London all the time in my best suit. I struggle with that, right? And I promise you, I'm going to get to that stage, fingers crossed, someday, where it's going to be all about, hey guys, I'm doing a meetup in this cafe, come see me. So it's a journey. You kind of go from one to the other, really, but you can't escape online presence. So the faster you do that, the better it is.
Yeah, no, good advice. We've got a couple of questions about focus. I think we've got a little bit more time just about. So a couple of questions about focusing in. So Tenzin asked about that whole personal brand idea. So Tenzin asked, I have multiple interests such as finance, tech, and consulting. should I convey that kind of multiplicity in my brand, or should I focus in on one area of strength? What do you think?
Right. That's a good question, actually. Is it what the question I would ask you is it really multiplicity though? Because you said finance, tech, and consultant. I am all those three things, right? Like I am an IT consultant. I work in finance and I have technical skills. So really, I think multiplicity sometimes can be seen as, oh, you can only do one or the other. But in reality, it's never the case. You kind of do all the things at the same time. I don't think you need different platforms. I think you need to kind of convey your brand in a way that you seem credible on all three fronts, right? That can be a challenge sometimes. It can be like, I don't think you're technical enough. So make sure you post some content that makes you look like you're technical enough. And I think if you're thinking of a career, the person who's asked me this question specifically, find a job where you do all three. It's completely possible. I am doing it. Right? So don't think of these things as three separate things. Think of these things as this is who you are and you're one person and you can be a lot of things.
Yeah. And then another focus question. You kind of answered this, I think, because this question came up earlier in the chat, but this was Zainab just saying, is it more important to have a lot of channels where you promote your brand online, or maybe one or two? So Zainab was concentrating maybe on LinkedIn and YouTube. Is it better to have a kind of focus and produce a lot of content via just a small number of channels, or do you need to be out there across them all?
I think it's better to have a few focus things that you can actually dedicate your time to. You can, in my case, right, I have 3 that I think are main, but I'm also on other things, right? But what I do is they are dormant. They have my face, my picture, things about me. So, say somebody was trying to look me up, they still saw me, but I'm not super active on those. And then I pick the ones that I'm super active on. These are the ones that convert into business opportunities for me. And I think in your case, if you were thinking of somebody who's starting out, don't overwhelm yourself, right? Start with 2. I think you have to be on LinkedIn in today's day and age. You don't have to post all the time. Just make sure you update it like you update your CV. Then if you have an Instagram, or if it comes naturally to you, start with that. I think you might have seen this. You might see people who become really popular on YouTube and then they suddenly have Instagrams and TikToks and Twitters and they all have like millions of followers. These things are very fluid and they kind of transform from one to the other, but let that happen to you, right? Don't force yourself to do it. Let it come very naturally. And then when it does, before you know it, you will be hiring social media executives who maintain all your brands, right? So it really is a journey.
I mean, I'm going to ask like one more question because I think we've gone a little bit past 8 o'clock, and I know you need to enjoy your Diwali, Rituja. So, and this question, I guess I'm going to ask it because it's there in the kind of the list of questions that were asked. But I feel like your whole presentation has been like answering this question. But if you had to sum it up in just a couple of words, the question is, how do you attract employers on LinkedIn, right? What can you do to get those employers coming to you? Is that possible, or do you have to be more proactive and go to them?
Yeah, it is possible, right? That's answer number 1, but it's not the only thing you should do. You should go to them. You should also expect them to come to you. Just keep all those channels open. But the best way to attract people is to believe in yourself first, right? If they see you be confident, they see the potential in you, and they see you see the potential in you, it's very attractive. There's nothing more attractive than seeing people who are very sure about who they are and what they want, right? That's the best way to attract people, not just employers, but people, right? Friends, partners, think about anybody. So I think social media allows you to do that today, right? You can do that just by posting a few words, by posting a picture, whatever that looks like. And I think if you're kind of talking very specifically about, let's say, corporate employers, then I guess, your LinkedIn's quite important. If you're somebody who's looking for creative employers, then your Instagram, to be creative is important, right? I don't think in today's day and age, I personally don't want to be successful at the same level for a very long time. I want to do more. To do more, you kind of have to prove to people first that you can do more. right? So whatever you want to be, manifest it, and then the employer will come. It doesn't work the other way around. It's not like the employer comes and then you manifest it, right? So it is one of those things. You do it first, and then somebody will pay you to do it.
If you build it, they will come, right? So brilliant. Thank you so much, Rituja. Thank you so much. Thank you for your insights and all the advice today. Everybody, I'm sure you're clapping away virtually for Rituja, who's given us so much of her time and so many great ideas. One thing I would ask as we kind of wrap up, everybody, you will get a short evaluation survey in the chat box. Please do fill that out if you have the time. Lots of people have asked about the slides and the YouTube recording. We are going to send those out afterwards. It will take a little bit of time for the YouTube recording because it needs to be kind of topped and tailed and edited. Our next What It Takes talk is a panel event on Tuesday, 16th of November, on what it takes to get into research and innovation. So look out for the information about that. What I'd like to say before we go is thanks to the team who are kind of setting all this up. So David, Hayden, James, Nandini and Tierney, who have been organising everything in the back and setting everything up. And thanks once again to Rituja. Thank you so much, Rituja. Great to see you again and great to have such a brilliant talk.
Thank you so much, Jim. Thanks, everybody. Please do connect with me. I've dropped my LinkedIn link in there, and you can find me as @Rituja Rao everywhere else. And like I said, if you do tweet to me or if you interact with my content, it really helps me. Thank you, everybody. Hope you have a good evening and happy Diwali.
Brilliant. Bye. Bye, Rituja.
Thank you. Bye.